Hey, this is Neon, and I'm back with Geeky Sparkles, and yeah, we're going to do another comic book video that we're not going to do anymore.
I didn't say we were doing more. We just said we weren't doing that many.
Nothing but comic book stuff, but we had to comment, and this isn't going to be a very long video, but apparently one of the notorious comic book blogs out
one
there,
that likes to light garbage cans on fire and say, "Look, fire, fire, come read this." That place
has posted an article today saying that there are actually more conservatives, or there are more liberals blacklisted by comic book publishers than conservatives. Well,
yeah,
this is a really interesting article because there's a couple things going on here. One is they're admitting there's a blacklist,
yeah,
which nobody's ever really come out and said.
Is they really? They're really saying there's a blacklist.
Formally, they said, well, they basically.
And yeah, number of blacklisted creators.
Yeah, so there is a blacklist. So is there like a formal, like a little book or something of naughty comic book creators? I
don't know, and that's like illegal, but yeah.
I think it's just these are the freelancers that have been deemed difficult.
We know there's lists because people are talking about it on Twitter. How I go through the list and see who I'm not allowed to follow, so I don't follow them.
Pretty much. So anyway, they said, you know, this person was going on about how there were way more liberals blacklisted than conservatives, which
probably is true.
Completely makes sense, because one thing I do agree with the article is that there are far, far more liberals working in the comic book industry than conservatives.
I just thought it was funny that the article was trying to be unbiased for once.
Yeah,
it was like they're actually trying to be journalists.
But the article was trying to be unbiased, but also gave absolutely no proof of
they did a pretty good job, though, trying to remain in the middle.
Yeah, but
I will give them credit for that.
But statistically speaking, yes, when you have thousands of liberals and like 100 conservatives, yes, more liberals are going to be blacklisted than conservatives.
That doesn't mean the statistics match up.
Right. It means, and that's sheer numbers. What we're talking about is percentages. Like, are percentages... are the percentages the same? And, you know, I mean...
Without looking at the book, I can't tell you.
Without busting out the book, I don't know. I mean, there are people... I have heard stories, and I have heard stories of liberals being blacklisted, too. A lot of times...
They do.
Yeah, it usually comes down to this person gets a reputation for being very difficult, and since you are...
And he admits that in the article. He says they acted big asses, and that, you know, they were bigger asses than some of the other people.
Yeah, either that, or they just can't hack it. They're difficult to work with. And, you know, editors talk, and they're like, you know, don't work with this person because they're going to let you down hard, or they're going to go to social media and badmouth you, or whatever. But, you know, the thing is that was kind of how it's always been. But you look at the recent trend just in the last year or two, and when you've actually got Marvel editors out on Twitter saying that...
But they said this wasn't political at all.
That's where I disagree.
The article keeps saying politics don't come into it.
Right.
Well, crap.
I don't think politics did before. I do think that there are some
not until recently.
Conservative creators that maybe were banned for this or that before, that might have come down to behavior.
I don't think it was even based on where you swung party wise. It was just on behavior.
Behavior, yeah. Which I completely agree with that. But in the more recent history, when you actually have Marvel editors going on Twitter and saying, if you voted for Trump, we know who you are, and you will not work in the comic book industry. If you support people like diversity in comics, we know who you are, and you'll never be in the gang. You'll never be in the club. You know, when they say things like that, it's really hard to make a case for them being unbiased.
And non-political.
And non-political, right? So, I don't know. I mean, is there a blacklist out there? Like I said,
well, apparently there is, which
they're admitting it. And I think it's just, I really just think it comes down to editors just sharing information on people they've worked with.
Of course, no one wants to work with a dick. I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
if you get a reputation for being a dick,
if someone's being a jerk, or they're not getting the stuff done in time, or whatever, and they're being arrogant, and they think that they're more important than everybody else and stuff like that, I can understand why you would not want to work with those people. And that was the case until recently. But now it is about politics. Even if it's saying it's not about politics, it most certainly is about politics.
And this is coming from a liberal. I will tell you, I've seen the behavior on Twitter. I've seen things said. I've heard the quote-unquote locker room chatter. Yeah, I mean, as of 2018, I think, given the hostile political environment, being a conservative in the comic book industry, you've just got a big bullseye on your forehead. Now, if you're quiet, there are conservatives who don't voice any strong opinions
I think a lot of them don't, because
they're afraid to.
Well, a lot of people that are conservative are probably going to be people who have been there a while, honestly, and and they're more professional. They're professional. I'm not saying they're more. I'm not saying if you're conservative, you're more professional than if you're liberal. That's not what I'm saying.
No. Just saying
what I'm saying is it's not being brought up because a lot of people are, and I think on the liberal side too, a lot of people are professional, and their political affiliation has absolutely nothing to do with their job, so they don't go on about being conservative or being liberal because they didn't need to.
Right. Like if it becomes like a religious argument where it's like they realize in the office, like, you just don't talk about that too much because not everybody's going to agree with you.
That would be like me going to I'm going to go to school and to work, and if and teachers are going to faction off by who's conservative and who's liberal. And they're going to and now the principal says if any of you voted for Trump, which wouldn't happen. If we live in a small town, it would be the opposite. If any of you voted for Trump, you can leave and you will never be hired to work in this district again. And that's what they're saying. And it doesn't fly anyplace else. You get a job at a company and they come in there and say, if any of you people voted for Hillary, there's the door. We have a list. Do not bother asking us again for a job.
But again, this is happening. I mean, people are being harassed out of restaurants, whatever, for wearing the MAGA hat. No, I do not own the MAGA hat. But I'm just saying, like, so there is. I mean, it's
on both sides.
It's on both sides.
But I'm just that's why I use both sides as examples.
Right. But as far as the comic book industry is concerned, I think this has been true until the recent political
I would agree with
events.
This until recently.
Until recently, I would agree with this because I know of some conservatives. I know of some very, very Christian people, very far right people who have been working in comics for a while. Now, they don't broadcast, all of their religious beliefs or whatever. They just kind of do their work and keep themselves, and that's fine. But I will say now, with it being the way it is, that when you've got Marvel editors coming out and saying, we know who supported Trump and who didn't, and we're going to blacklist you
and you can't
from comics.
Say it's non-political.
You can't say it's not political anymore. I mean, there literally is.
Ideally, it shouldn't be.
It should not be.
It should be based on behavior.
Right. So, I just think the rules of the blacklist, if there is indeed a formal blacklist, and I don't really think there is, but I think there is.
I think there's like a verbal blacklist.
I think there's
I think there's a list now.
I think there's a list of people who are supporting diversity in comics, Ethan Van Sciver, John Malin, etc. I think there's a running list in comics of these are the troublemakers.
Because I don't, for whatever reason, if you support this person, it automatically makes you
a Nazi.
Or a bad person. And I don't understand it, because if you might like a project, doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just because you like I mean, there are people. What about the people who just came in and just like, hey, I saw this thing on Indiegogo. Geez, I didn't know the guy had a YouTube channel, but I thought it looked like a fun comic book, and I gave him my money. And
now you can't. Now you can't shop at comic.
Now you can't shop at your local comic book shop because they actually literally have a blacklist. According to some kid on YouTube, he was kicked out of his comic book shop because his name came up as a supporter of diversity in comics, and his shop was one of the comics that Diversity Comics said.
Pretty sure you're not allowed to do.
You're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to do. So yeah, is there a blacklist now? I think there's a blacklist now. I don't think it was as heavily enforced before. It was just like so and so is a complete raging alcoholic, and we don't want to work with them. Don't want to work with them. And as far as there being more liberals, yes, of course there are more liberals because there are more liberals in comics. I would say liberals probably.
Which this article admits to that.
Yeah, and I think that liberals. I mean, to be honest, it's conservatives have always been the minority. I think it's probably 3-1, easy.
And I think it's like what they mentioned in the article, which is true.
It's very true.
Yeah. Arts colleges usually, are more left. The publishers are, New York, California, places like that, which,
Portland.
Are areas that are like, more liberal.
Yeah.
And, and other places pay better, which we've mentioned.
You know what? This is the thing I want to address. Yeah. Why? This is this is like the Occam's razor version. Why aren't there more conservatives in comics? Because conservatives are usually capitalists, and they figured out that comics doesn't pay shit. That's why I'm more conservatives in comics. I'm being honest. Like I
you take what you can get when no one else will work for you because you don't want to pay them.
Yeah. So I think what happened was, a lot of conservatives are just like, I'm not working in comics. There's no money.
Honestly, we're really more liberal, but that's kind of like our opinion. We're like,
well, that's kind of where we're at now. It doesn't pay enough to deal with the aggravation, but whereas liberals be like, well, as long as I get to do what I love and I get paid something for it, that's okay.
And then apparently as soon as you get a gig, that suddenly makes you like able to have a platform that you think that means that you matter and people listen to you, whether or not they do.
Right, and here come the politics.
And it's like, it used to be like you were on a book and people might know who you were, but it wasn't. Like the book was about the book, not about you. Right. And now it seems like people think it's about them. and not the books.
You know, I really wish we started talking about comics on this channel. And I remember, you know, when I was a kid and I read comics, like, I didn't even know who was working on most of the comics I read. Their names were not on the cover of the book like they are now. If you wanted to know who was working on the book, you would have to go to the inside cover, the front page, look down below in really tiny letters and kind of search for who worked on the book. Because at the end of the day, back then, it really wasn't that important. The characters in the comics themselves were important, but the individuals really sort of got lost in the shuffle. So you didn't have that platform. Like, you know, and these poor creators worked for years kind of thanklessly,
right,
you know, on these books, and like, you know, the folks running the companies got all the credit for it. But
I'm not saying we should go back to that.
No, I'm not saying we should go back to that, but I'm just saying, like, comics creators having the platforms they have, having the notoriety that they have, which I really think happened with the advent of indie comics and with like the Image guys, because you know, Todd McFarlane could sell a ton of comics just because he was Todd McFarlane.
Right.
That was a new thing. Like, nobody cared before that. But now these creators that are like only selling like 2,000 books a month or something think that they've got this massive platform.
Well, that's what they think. It's about them, not not
about the book,
the work. And it's like, you know, it's not about you. I mean, you're not Todd McFarlane. I'm just saying.
No,
you know?
Todd McFarlane, I'm pretty sure keeps his nose out of most of this stuff. I mean, he's made a couple.
He makes smart. They would.
He makes a couple of statements on Twitter, but I think Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, those guys. Now, Eric Larson just constantly gets himself into trouble, but most of the Image founders, they've tried to play it down the middle, I think, and wisely, because they come from a different era when you know, comics used to sell like over 1 million copies a month. Some of the books, and you know, people really like to make money. So
yeah,
except for Eric Larson, who doesn't like to make money.
It's still a business, people. It's still a business.
It's still a business.
You don't go to your place of work and think, well, I got hired here, I now have a platform, I'm going to sit on my desk and spout off what I believe, and you're all going to listen to it because I got hired here. And it doesn't work that way. I'm
going to use company equipment, and all day I'm going to send angry tweets to people I don't like because social justice.
Why would it be social justice? But yeah, but I'm just like, you're going to use company equipment to fight people on what, you know, push your agenda. And it's like, that's just, you know, we used to have Occam's razor. I said that to you yesterday. I said about Occam's razor, I said that's what comics reminds me of. Whatever, you know, the simplest explanation is tends to be the right one. Yeah. And if people aren't buying stuff, the simplest explanation is they don't want that stuff.
They don't want the stuff.
But no, that can't be the right answer.
That can't be it. No.
It's this convoluted thing of ists and, you know, and you know, hate mongering and all, and because one person does a book that we don't like, it's clearly because he's raising an army and all this other stuff, and it's not just because maybe they don't want what you're selling. Yeah,
and that really comes at the end of the day, like, all of this comes down to the fact that the comic book industry, if they're freaking out over all the stuff going on with COMICSGATE, they really have nobody to blame but themselves, because they've been churning out products that consumers haven't liked, and they will go for the alternative. So, of course, the natural solution is just block people from being able to buy the alternative. But I think you're going to see more and more alternative comics companies pop up.
Well, I think the solution would clearly be, well, hey, they don't want this. What do they want? Let's go change to do what they want, so we make money.
Listen to customer feedback. I think I honestly think there will be boardroom discussions after this COMICSGATE stuff blows over, being like, what did we do wrong? And like you said, the simplest explanation is you just didn't listen to the consumers for so long, and this is what happened. Well, you left people in your company spout off to consumers, you know, and this is what happened.
You see products all the time that some do really well and people love it, and some don't do well, and sometimes they go back and retool them and re-release them later, and they do better because they took customer comments. Well, like the Thor movies, people were like, they're pretty boring. They listened to the fans. And then when they did Ragnarok, people loved Ragnarok.
Ragnarok is probably my favorite MCU movie.
And they loved it.
Like, I love it.
They said, what are we doing wrong? As the fans, what are we doing wrong? Now, I understand, you know, you can't take everybody's opinion. And as the creators ourselves, fans often have opinions. And, you know, and you can't please everyone. And you don't always have to change what you're doing to appease people all the time. But it's easier on a creator-owned project than it is on an established, well-known IP like Thor or something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, you take what you're hearing the most of, and then you try to incorporate that in a unique and creative way into your product to try to reach more people. I mean, I never heard, until we started doing comics, I never heard people talk about their niche audience, and they're for a niche audience. Because in my mind, if you really want to do well and you want it to reach people, you want to shoot for mass appeal.
Right.
You don't want to niche yourself into a little hole that no one cares about.
No, and that's kind of what's going on now. So I think it's just everybody's freaking out. I do, you know, to bring it back to the original point, like,
we always do this.
I know we do this, but I'm just saying, as far as there being a blacklist, I think there's an informal blacklist, or there was an informal blacklist. I really, truly believe there now is a formal blacklist
I completely believe it.
of people who are either they've either been labeled Trump supporters, because we've had Marvel editors admit this in public.
Yeah, and I was like, how would they know?
Right, they've been blacklisted because they are supporters of diversity in comics or any of these other COMICSGATE channels. I completely believe this because there have been multiple comments made by multiple creators that they're watching. They know who supports what. And I think when you see...
How much time did that take?
I know, exactly. Like, aren't you... Just go make freaking comic books.
No wonder your comic books are lacking and the quality's crap when you're spending all your time...
God, you're spending all your time on freaking Twitter. Go make good comics. But you've got all these creators all of a sudden, you know, it's like, I think the pressure's being put on. I think the crackdown's beginning. You've got guys like Patrick Zurcher, who was sort of on the fence about COMICSGATE. Now all of a sudden he's like, you know, yes, I renounce COMICSGATE and all of its evils. I'm going to block all of these people. I'm blocked. I'm blocked from Patrick Zurcher, who I've never met in real life, but like, just because I follow a couple of people who are involved in the COMICSGATE thing on Twitter, I can no longer follow Patrick Zurcher. So
I'm sorry, I just think it's funny. It's like, you gotta block this person, because I heard that he was following an account that's the cousin of this account whose dog likes this account and is a friend of this person on Instagram for this account.
Right.
So through the power of Kevin Bacon, this person must be bad, and you must. And these lists must be like the size of the Bible, because I'm just trying to figure out, you know, because they're blacklisting anybody who's even associated with somebody.
Right. So you want to talk about a blacklist? All the freaking block lists on Twitter. I mean, you've got people who are like just completely just innocent bystanders. And that's another thing that kind of brought me into this, was like, oh my God, because I follow one or two people you don't like, I'm not allowed to see your tweets anymore. Like, what kind of childish middle school crap have I ever harassed you?
Middle school crap. That's what this is all about. It's just like high school cliques all over again. And it's like, oh my God, she slept with so-and-so's boyfriend, so you better like not talk to her, and not talk to her friend, and not talk to her cousin, and not talk to anybody. And I better not see you even looking at them.
You better not be looking at them.
Because if you look at them, then I'm going to block you too. But it is, I'm like, this list must be the size of the Bible, because it's like, if you by 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon know somebody, well, and you liked one of the tweets that was retweeted without knowing it came from a person on this list, you're suddenly blocked. And it's like, this is insane. The sheer amount of time it would spend. And I know there was lists, because the other day I made a comment basically about, I went and got rid of a bunch of people on my Twitter that were just, I got tired of the constant, like, you know, I don't want to hear that I should be hit in the face with a shovel or a baseball bat or whatever. And I got rid of some of those people that perpetuate that, because I just don't want to deal with it anymore. And I still have a lot of friends who are, you know, who are SJWs or left-leaning or whatever. I'm only saying SJW because they themselves said they're SJWs. And I don't like labeling people, but they said they were. And I have friends like that all the time, and that's fine. We get along great. There's no issues. But I got rid of some of the ones I thought were kind of toxic, and they don't really follow me back anyway, so there was nothing lost by getting, you know, rid of them.
I had people, including editors I have worked with, unfollow me simply for following a couple of people on Twitter
who might happen to know somebody.
Who might know somebody who might know somebody.
Why didn't you finish what I was saying?
Oh, I'm sorry.
But anyway, what I was going to say was, after I took these people off, because they don't follow me back anyway.
Right.
I had said about getting rid of some of the people that were toxic because it was making me upset. And this one person, I think, thinking I meant I was getting rid of people like the other way, which I don't really follow people on the other way either. But I was thinking I was getting rid of people on the other way. She's like, oh yes, there's a list. The lists make it so much easier. And I just liked it, because I was like, wait.
You just admitted there's a list. There's
and
absolutely.
I'm like, I should have said, where do I find these lists? Just because they would have given them to me.
She's sweet Lord. Yeah, you probably could have. Like, Geeky Sparkles could have, like, totally infiltrated the whole scene.
But I don't have time to infiltrate the
I know,
whole scene.
right? We've got, like, a real life.
I have jobs and like kids and a life and
so
things that pay better than they get paid.
Yeah, so the long and short of this is, was there a formal blacklist in comics up until recently? I do not believe so. I believe that, and I do believe there were more liberals on this quote-unquote blacklist, just by sheer numbers.
Statistically,
numbers. I don't think anybody was actually thrown out of comics until recently, just for being a conservative. I think that they probably were kind of an asshole in addition to being
I don't think it had anything to do with politics. I think up till recently, I think if you were just a jerk, it didn't matter what side you were on.
Or you just
got in trouble.
Or your style just didn't sell anymore, your books didn't sell,
that happens a lot too. You aren't relevant anymore, or whatever, which we've mentioned before.
That's, happened, unfortunately, to a lot of older creators. They just sort of
New regime came in, they didn't like you for some reason.
Right.
You're out for a few years, so another group comes in, or whatever.
Right. But I strongly disagree. I do believe that there is a formal blacklist now.
Politically based.
Based solely on politics.
Or who you talk to or not.
I think if you talk to or associate with anyone that's even remotely
associated like a third cousin twice removed, but you know them.
Right.
You're the enemy.
Just like McCarthyism. I mean, really, it is. It's ridiculous because you're blocking and banning people that have absolutely nothing to do with the situation, which actually creates more enemies because they're like, well, if I'm going to be accused of it, I might as well do it.
You know what's funny? We live in this really small town, and we're like actually the vast minority of people here, because we're not really. I honestly don't think we affiliate either party specifically. We're kind of like.
Well, I mean, we said before, neither one of us are formally a Democrat or Republican.
We're like more independent.
Usually, I support Democratic candidates.
Yeah, we usually look at the candidates and what they're saying, and then we like which one jives more with what we think. So we don't really stick to one another. We see good things on both sides and bad things on both sides, but because we are more left leaning here, we're the minority. Yeah. And a lot of my family members and stuff definitely are Trump supporters. And so if they looked at any of my people I'm related to, I would be banned just because my parents like Trump. I mean,
never mind that you guys have gotten in some pretty heated arguments over policies.
We call them debates.
Over policy and whatnot. But it's weird. It's like we look like radicals here, but like. We're considered alt-right by the comic book industry.
Here we're considered liberal libtards and snowflakes here, and then I don't think we ever go that way. I mean, like snowflake territory.
Oh God, no.
We aren't like that. But then on the opposite side, we go in the comics, and then we're like alt-right Nazis all of a sudden.
I know.
So it's
I know.
My anxiety disorder has an anxiety disorder. I'm not kidding.
It's you can't say anything anymore without getting in trouble. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely believe that conservatives and anyone associated with diversity in comics, anyone associated with COMICSGATE are just by default being blocked and blacklisted. And until those people, that regime, either gets voted out or whatever, ousted. And I think that as far as working in mainstream comics, if you are associated with this COMICSGATE thing, I don't think you're going to be the phone's not going to be ringing. I mean, that's the truth. And
if this is the regime does it, I would like to see that the diversity stays. I mean, I think there needs to be true diversity.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not really seeing. I still don't see the diversity, but there's supposed to be true diversity, and I'd like to see other people get a chance, to tell some stories and to see some different types of people. I just don't think that there's a difference between diversity and this extremist. I don't know what they even call it, but whatever this is.
Zealousness, this zealot mentality, and it's just absolutely
perpetuated
ridiculous.
By the people that are still at the heart of it, not that diverse.
No, because it's the same kinds of people perpetuating, bringing more of the same kinds of people in the comics and making sure they stay there and getting rid of people who
just might have a different check mark in one of the boxes. Like they're still, the people they say they're against, but I'm not those people because, I am, gay or I'm trans or I am a woman or whatever, and so I'm actually those people. I mean, because I'm one step away, and that's okay. I mean, you're not you're diverse, but that's not true diversity.
When everybody is quote unquote diverse, nobody is.
I don't know. Like the one lady in the comments said, she's like truly when they say diverse, she would be what they would consider diverse, and she's right. Yeah. And that's not the people they're picking to put in there, and I would like to see true diversity and good stories.
I think that's really
that aren't agenda pushing.
Yeah, I think if comics
people just want to have fun.
That's it. If comics has any chance of pulling itself out of this funk, they gotta stop. They gotta stop this, whether it's formal or informal blacklisting of people they don't like, trash talking the comic book readers, They have to focus on fun and
good stories.
Stay the hell off of Twitter. You know what? If I were in charge, if I were in charge of Marvel or DC, I'd be like, you know what? Unless it's company related, you work for us. Stay the hell off of Twitter, because you're doing more damage on social media to our sales than you are.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because you're like, Neon's always like, just get off of Facebook, get off of Twitter, just get off of there, because I'm always like, rah! You know, and he's like, just get off of Twitter.
It's stressing you out. Turn it off. You know, seriously, I'm like, if I knew that my employees, that my freelancers were out there causing all kinds of damage on social media, okay, that this is actually affecting sales, I would just be like, you guys want to work, like, you're allowed to think and say whatever you want to do, but not if you work here. That's part of your contract. Keep your freaking mouth shut. And there are companies out there that will basically tell employees, like, we check your social media presences like all the time.
Well,
and if
you have a lot of times you have NDAs and things. You're not allowed to even talk about it. I know we've had
so
NDAs.
many projects I've worked on for so many companies I can't talk about. I still can't talk about. But, like, I'm not going to be on there. I mean, these folks, they get a freelance gig and they're, like, tap dancing in the end zone. Like,
before they even start.
Before they even draw, they're like, guess who's drawing Spider-Man? I'm drawing Spider-Man.
Guess who was drawing Spider-Man? I was drawing Spider-Man. You know, I didn't
even right, like the next month.
I didn't even start to draw Spider-Man.
But, like, yeah, I would just be like, you know what? We're here to make money, and you're losing money. Do you want to work in comics? Yes or no? I'm not going to stifle your freedom of speech, but this is a condition of employment here, and
you can talk about other things. Just
you
not allowed to talk about these.
Don't talk about politics. Don't
talk about
attack.
Don't
customers.
attack people on the projects.
Right. If you know, because you technically are representing the company, and that's the one thing that I really strongly agree with the COMICSGATE movement on, is this attacking the customers, attacking other creators.
I don't understand that.
Pushing the
it's bad business.
It's bad business, and most real companies would terminate you for some of the things that these people said. They would absolutely do it, but comics is just like a freaking free-for-all until they get this problem addressed. This is not going to go away.
I honestly think at the heart of it, that's the biggest part of I think there's two issues that are at the heart of the problem, and that's one, you need stories that, you know, people actually want to buy, right? And two, you need to address this, like, diary of the mouth with some of these people,
right? And these people,
like, oh no, blah, 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 blah,
yeah, and they're causing so much damage. And the thing is that, you know, there have always been people in comics that have had some really strange beliefs, Neil Adams, but, like, they've always had these, like, really kind of wacky beliefs, but they didn't have, like, they just did their work and they did their comics, and again, you had the letters, like, whatever. You never had any real contact with this person. Maybe you ran into him at a convention, you were in an interview in, like, Comic Book Journal or whatever, and then you kind of peel back the curtain a little bit to tell you a little more about that creator, but always it was work first. And now social media has absolutely torpedoed the comic book industry, because now, like, there's no separation.
I blame most of the ills of the world on social media.
Oh, I completely agree. I completely agree. So, but those are, yeah, I mean,
you told me, oh, Sparkles, it's gonna take like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
10 minutes.
Well, we keep derailing things, but yes, there absolutely is a blacklist now. I don't think that was always the case. Yes, the customers are being blacklisted based on who they follow, things that they've said. It is a political thing. It's absolutely about politics. It's absolutely about politics.
And I will give the article credit. It did actually sound like a legitimate news piece for once. It didn't sound like lighting something on fire just to be like, look, fire, come, hits.
Right, but there was nothing to substantiate the claims. But
I said that to you. I said, but there's no examples.
Right, but I mean, I will go on record saying I do agree with this. I just think that it has changed. It has definitely changed. Politics are definitely at the center of it. Conservatives are absolutely being discouraged from working in comics and really working in any area of entertainment. And this is coming from a liberal, right? And I will tell you that there definitely is a bias against people who supported Donald Trump. So there it is. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with the article. I'd say 90% of it, which is unusual for me to agree with this place 90%. But I do, and the only thing I disagree with is the political end of it, because I would agree until recently, and then it's definitely a political issue at this point in time.
And we need to just freaking stop it. Just stop it.
I know.
Stop it?
Why do politics? I mean, what used to be, it didn't matter who you voted for.
No, most people never talked about
it didn't matter what you had under your clothes. It didn't matter, who you slept with. It didn't matter, you know, what religion you were. It didn't matter. It just, you went to work, you did your job, you know, went for a drink afterwards. Everybody was kind of like, okay,
my teacher in high school, you know, my very first election, I ran into him after, and I said, well, I voted for Bill Clinton, and I got a groan, and that was it. Like, we didn't have a big debate or anything. No. He's just like,
He didn't have to call all his friends on the phone and be like, let me tell you who Neon voted for, and make sure you add him to that list in the teacher's lounge. Like, put it on the list. He's on our. We're gonna make his life hell.
Yeah, and you know, he just like he ran into me, and we, you know, because he was best teacher I ever had too. He was a Republican. He was very Republican, but he didn't push it in the classroom. But we had a I remember having the conversation with him, and he was kind of like, "What did I do wrong?"
When I was my first job teaching, I was there, and the teachers were very much for the Democrat candidate, and there's some things I didn't like about it, so I voted for the Republican candidate, and they weren't very happy about it, but they weren't mean about it, like, oh, okay, well, you know, agree to disagree. Hey, how about this class later today? And, you know, can you hang out after school and help me with this stuff? It was not like I'm locking you in the closet all day. Yeah. What the heck's wrong with you?
It was, and sometimes it would come up kind of casually. And I remember a time where it used to be impolite to ask people who they voted for in the workplace. It was like you were not supposed to talk about who you voted for in the workplace. It was supposed to be a private thing. That's why they have curtains on the polling booths, right?
That's why there's curtains.
And now it's like you have to tattoo on your forehead who you voted for, so they know who to blacklist, who to kick out of the club.
I know, and
it's ridiculous.
I don't really care who you voted for. I really, like I said to people, I don't care what color you are. I don't care what you have under your clothes. I don't care what clothes you wear. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what color. I don't care any of that stuff. All I care about is, are you an asshole? If the answer is yes, then I don't like you.
Pretty much.
I don't care, and I would not judge someone's work based solely on, and I wouldn't discriminate against somebody because they didn't have the same affiliation with me. That's just dumb.
Yeah, it's so stupid. But we'll wrap this one up. It ran way longer than I thought it was going to run.
Only 10 minutes. If I talked quickly, I apologize, because I usually speak.
Just slow it down to 50% and listen to it.
And then we get like Neon said, you know, hey, the plus side is you get like a 2-hour podcast crammed into 30 minutes.
That's right, you know? Right? So it's like a speed training.
It's more quantity. Sorry, the quality isn't as much as it should be. But I always talk quickly.
Yeah, so I do think there's absolutely a blacklist, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree. I mean, I'm not trying to like fuel the flames or anything, but I have seen comments on Twitter. Absolutely, there is a blacklist now. I don't think.
People were telling me there's a list. They said, "Well, this list really helped me decide who I should listen to and who I shouldn't." And I'm like, "Wait, there's lists, and you actually don't check them?" You know?
And there are liberals on the list. I mean, there are some people out there that are just absolutely atrocious. I've heard.
We're probably on the list. And we're not. And
I'm sure we're on the list now. I mean,
all we say is, "Hey,
whatever."
We're in the middle, and you know,
that's enough to get you on the list. If you even give the quote unquote enemy, you know, the benefit of the doubt, you're on the list.
Well, here's what gets me is we're in trouble no matter what side. No, from both sides, because
we're
in the middle.
From both sides.
So you know, it's like if you met me, I you know, I just don't care.
That's why we're kind of like before we started doing this, we're like, do we have any desire to do comics for somebody else? No, not really. Okay, well, let's just let her rip, because we're not going to after this.
Real quick, I was thinking about who you met me. So one person I mentioned before tried to get into it with me the one day about it when I was defending my husband and other people who were being unfairly, you know, harassed because of remote associations. And I had thought that both sides, that they're like going about, oh, the COMICGATErs are this horrible people, they're attacking my friends. And I'm like, look, your friends shouldn't be attacked. And I 100% agree with you on that. And I understand why you're fighting back. And I said, but we shouldn't be attacked either. Well, anyway, this person, you know, tried to start it with me. And I guess, I'm not going to say the person was, but the person is known for being it's
one of like the dirty dozen. It's like one of the
known for being one of the people
who actively goes out and seeks every comics
spends all day on the internet trying to cause
that they can find and causes fights.
And Neon's like, oh my god, disengage.
I was
and
like,
I looked at him and I said, have you met me?
This is before we did any videos. This is before we really even had anything to do with this COMICSGATE thing. Sparkles is being jumped in a webcomics forum by one of the dirty dozen people.
No, it was like a friend's page, but he's a webcomic.
Yeah, and it was like I mean, and this person just kept going on and on and on.
They're writing manifestos, and that's when I said, "Look, I got a plane to catch in the morning, and it's something unrelated to comics."
Right, like we got a real life now, so
but it was funny because like they were writing manifestos, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" But Neon kept saying, "Disengage." I'm like, "God, this person's a real." I knew
this person from some of the videos. I'm like, "Oh my god, that's all we need."
And I just looked at him, and I was like, "Have you met me?"
Yeah, and the person
they did back down. I did get them to back down. They backed down off of me.
Yeah, it's just it's just bizarre. But this person has no power really anyway. It's just the person thinks they have power. But yeah, we're going to wrap this one up. Subscribe to the channel. Again, we'll do occasional comics videos. We don't want the channel to become a comic book bash.
So there's going to be videos pop up of gaming.
Right, so don't be alarmed.
Different things like that, you know. Maybe some geek news and things like that.
Right,
so that's why, because we are not a comics-centric channel.
Right. So and
pop
then
culture geekdom, yes.
Yeah, and this is definitely right now, you know, touches on all that stuff because, you know, all these fandoms are kind of dealing with this political divide, which is really unfortunate because, you know, I liked it when fandoms used to bring people together. You liked it when
politics weren't in it?
Yeah.
When you could have your affiliations and no one cared as long as you told a good story and you weren't a jerk.
Right, your favorite movie, favorite show, favorite comic, whatever. Everybody got together, had a good time. We didn't really discuss this kind of stuff. Politics were sort of off the table when we all used to get together.
We talked about the important things, like what color should we make this character for the new redesign, or, you know...
Right. Did you see last week's episode? Oh my god, that was garbage. You know, or what the hell is going to happen in the next Star Wars movie? Or
why the heck did they cancel Lucifer? Or something like that.
Yeah, now it's
Lucifer,
just like...
dang it.
God, it's all politics all the time. So we're going to wrap this one up. Subscribe to the channel. Again, don't be alarmed if you see some other videos that are not comics related, but we still will do comics videos from time to time. All right, you got anything to say?
No, I think I said enough.
Bye.